Welcome to the talk show, Lighting the Educational Flame, with your host, Mark Hoberman. The goal of this show is to provide a learning experience to people of all ages, with guests from various fields and academics, a wide range of industries, and insight into the many forms of art, athletics, and entertainment. We hope you enjoy the show. Singer, songwriter, and pop artist Amanda Ayala is today's guest. Amanda talks about music, songwriting, and the importance of finding a balance between entertainment and life.
Hello and welcome to the talk show, Lighting the Educational Flame. I'm your host, Mark Hoberman. Today our guest is pop artist, singer, and songwriter Amanda Ayala. Amanda, welcome to Lighting the Educational Flame.
Thank you so much for having me on. It's a very pleasure.
It's great to have you. Always when we have someone so young, I have to ask, when you were a kid, so many years ago, how old were you when you first caught the music bug?
Honestly, the music bug started really, really early for me. My first public appearance of singing live was actually at the age of 3 at one of my summer camp talent shows. I sang a Mark Anthony song, My Baby You, and because my brother also sang at the time, and like any young sister would, I wanted to do what he did, so I just gave it a go. And it turned out that I could, hold the tune even at 3 years old. So that was the very first time I stepped on a stage at 3.
Outstanding. Was this what camp was this?
This was at a camp called Pine Grove. It was located probably like 45 minutes up from New York City. Right. And it wasn't even a musical camp. They just did the end of the summer talent show for all the kids. And you could do individual performances, group performances. And I just gave it a whirl and sang a Mark Anthony song by myself and then snuck in some Pokemon in there as well.
Excellent. Well, it's interesting. I mentioned the camp because part of great success between being in education business and running the show is I do a lot of staff training at camps. The reason I bring that is because we talked earlier, and I was born in Yonkers, New York. You were born in Yonkers, New York. I lived there till I was 16. But I also went to a couple of camps, and one of the camps I went to was a sleepaway camp called French Woods Festival of the Performing Arts. And I have that in common with someone who you may be familiar with by the name of Adam Levine.
Oh my gosh, yes.
who went to that camp. I think, if I'm not mistaken, 1 or 2 of the people from Maroon 5 were there. But speaking of that name, Amanda's breakthrough moment was seen by millions on The Voice, I believe in 2015. What was that experience like? It has to be mind-blowing.
That is the perfect word that I use for it, is mind-blowing, because I still can't even wrap my head around it because it all still feels like a dream even all this time later. But the process itself was just such a surreal and exciting moment, being 17 and getting to experience something on a stage like that in front of millions of people like that is something that, you only come in terms of like once in a lifetime. So that experience for me was absolutely incredible. And I truly wouldn't trade it for the world. I learned so much from it.
That's great, because I interviewed Daniela Mass, who was a finalist on America's Got Talent. I lived in Rockland County, New York for many years. 5 minutes away was Grace Vanderwall from when she was on America's Got Talent also. So in speaking to Daniela and some of these other people, it's amazing. I don't think people realize the reach when they're sitting in their living room, like, oh, look, there's so-and-so or somebody singing. They don't realize that it's no joke when they say, okay, this is going to change your life forever. Obviously, you have a wonderful voice. You're a songwriter. You're talented. But what happened from the flicking of the switch to people? Some people know me. Some people see me perform. Now I'm going on this worldwide stage. The switch is flicked. Then what happens?
The craziest thing, and they said this beforehand, before our episodes aired live, we kind of did this little crash course with our PR teams from the show, and they kind of said, be prepared, because the moment that this airs, everything is going to change from here on out. And that was kind of good advice going into it, because I was, you could be naive and be like, oh, this is going to be fun. We don't realize actually just how much happens literally after 14 million people see your audition. So honestly, it's crazy, because when the minute it happened, your phone instantly is blowing up. You're seeing your numbers grow, and you get to hear from people that never knew who you were before in the world, which was such an incredible experience. And I kind of was all learning, especially it happened so young. So I had to kind of learn so much at such an early age. But it really prepared me for the real world and the real industry at an early age, which I'm super grateful for as well.
Yeah, excellent answer, but because I was going to ask the age question next. It's hard enough to keep your head on you. We see people who are in the limelight who struggle and who don't handle the limelight so well, make bad decisions. And what was that like for you? Because you went from walking on the stage, when you walked off, things changed. So do you remember like the first time people approached you and said like in a mall, oh my God, it's you? And how does a teenage brain handle that?
It was a lot for me at the time. It was definitely an emotional roller coaster. But I will say, I think the biggest thing and biggest support system I had was my family. You know, my mom, my brother. They were the ones that really held me grounded. They kind of guided me through things. And if I was feeling kind of like it's very easy to feel anxious or overwhelmed, but they were the ones that really kind of kept me grounded in terms of keeping a good head on my shoulders. You know, making sure to stay humble too, because it's so easy to get wrapped up in all the numbers and the notoriety. So they were very, very good people to have around, and they still are. They still keep that good head on my shoulders as well. But I remember the first time someone recognized me, because when the episode aired, I wanted to be home for it. Like I didn't really want to go out. I remember saying I want to watch it from the convenience of my own couch, and it aired. And then the next day, because I was still in my hometown at the time, I went out, and immediately anywhere I went publicly on just to grab lunch or something like that, people came up to me, and it was so cool. And it was like the first time I ever experienced people being like, "Can I take a picture? Oh my God, can I have your autograph?" It was so crazy.
That's excellent, and it's not so true anymore. But I have a lot of pictures behind me, and this is before I started the show, before I retired from teaching and started this. And if I'm being honest, I was definitely a bit of a celebrity stalker. So even as an adult, if I walked out on stage and before I started singing, I saw those four people. Now I know you're looking at on The Voice, you're looking at their backs, but I know you know who's in those chairs. So what? How do you get the focus to do what you need to do in 2 minutes and not think, oh my God, if they turn around, it's going to be Adam Levine. I'm in the same room as this person, as that person. That's got to be very tough for anyone at any age.
It's very, very true. And I think one of the things I had to like do was like mentally separate that from the actual show, because I had to think of it in terms of like my career. It was almost like that fight or flight situation, because the minute it's very intimidating, because no one speaks and tells you to go out on the stage because it's so quiet. So like there's like these doors that just open, and that's your cue to go out, and it's dead silent. Audience can't say anything. So I kind of had to say to myself, I'm like, you're out here for a reason. You got called here for a reason. You have to forget everything, forget who they are, and sing for 90 seconds and just do your best. And if they don't turn around, it was a fun ride while it lasted, but you know, the end goal wasn't like achieved. So that was kind of like my mindset a little bit. I really had to grind it out and just forget all about it and just do the best that I could and achieve, obviously, those chair turns.
That's so interesting, because you gave us kind of a backstage look, because when I watch it as a viewer, I'm like, yeah, they edit out the part where four people said, okay, Amanda, when the doors open, you walk here and do that. And I'm like, there's no way they just leave, because there's so many young people on the show. Yeah. And they just open the doors and no one turns around and says, is that for me? And so it's really interesting. And on another note, I'm amazed as all these shows are on. How many times they say, oh, do you also write your own songs? And I'm amazed at how many people say, oh, yes. And then they say, okay, forget the first one and do the one you wrote. Whether that's fixed or not, I don't know. But I am amazed and impressed by how many songwriters there are who are also singers. And to the next level, how many young people such as yourself who are songwriters. So what motivates you to write songs, and what is the message you're kind of trying to deliver in most of what you write?
Well, it's really interesting that you bring up the whole songwriting aspect of the show and how they ask, because I didn't really start songwriting until that experience, because I realized how just kind of behind I was in the songwriting process. I would just be in a cover band, and being around all the other singers at such a young age, 15 years old, they're like, oh, we have an album out. And I'm like, oh, I haven't even written really a song in God knows how long. So that kind of really pushed me to start writing and start writing. I'm going through this emotional roller coaster. Let's start writing about it, write down my emotions. And then that's where I kind of started to learn how and kind of craft my songwriting skills, because now I know exactly how I write. Because if I'm going through an emotional or stressful time, those are the best times to write. Anytime that there's like an emotional spike, whether it's happiness, sadness, I channel that into my writing, and it's a good coping mechanism as well.
For sure. And it's interesting you said something about your mindset when you write, because you may be too young to know this unless you watch the repeats, but The Love Boat was a show many, many, many years ago. And they had an episode where this person was a songwriter, and the agent kept making him fight with his girlfriend because whenever he was hurt, that's when his great songs came out. So that's just what I'm thinking about. I had a flashback back moment there. And, obviously you're so well poised and well spoken, but I want viewers to realize how young you were when you were you didn't walk out the doors onto the stage of The Voice last week. This was years ago. How old were you when you had that audition?
So I was 17 when I had the audition. So it was about five years ago, which is like so crazy to think.
Absolutely. Right. And even adults have gone on there and fallen apart. So I think it's so amazing that when they turn, you can keep your composure. And I know you have the new single out, 17. I saw the video, as I said earlier. I loved it. It's really great. I'm missing My Youth because it looks, I don't know where it was filmed, but I kind of see you in the video on the football field benches, I guess, in the stands. Yes. And I'm thinking about, when I got my youth back when I taught, because then I was sitting in the stands watching the players. But, it seems to me that you tap into the past, that you tap into, you don't run away from your youth, you embrace it. And what's that message in 17?
So the message, I think because in my life, so much always happened at that age. I graduated high school at 17. I went on The Voice at 17, which was like an amazing experience, but I also had to miss out on a lot of things at the age of 17 because of it. Missed my graduation. I wasn't able to attend. I missed my senior prom. I had to leave high school early, so I kind of missed out on my friendships and saying goodbye to everyone going off to college. But one of the things I always look back to, and that's kind of why the message of the song relates to, like, if you think of me, I hope it takes you back to 17, because anytime I'm feeling nostalgic, which I like to do, I like to reminisce about the good days. I always go back to that age. I'm like, oh, if I could redo 1 year again, it would be 17. And that's really where the message came back from. Just holding on to those youthful days because they were some of the best that I've had. And I mean, I've had great days following that, but there was such a carefree feeling when you're just a teenager and then you're getting to do such amazing things at that age.
Interesting, because, and you'll know this when you get older, if I'm going to write a song, it might be 30, because 17 is way in that rear view mirror. So did you write 17 or did someone else write that?
Yes, I wrote 17. Honestly, I wrote it in the midst of the pandemic. I just randomly was playing a video game and I was like, you know what? I should be more productive, set up a session and wrote it within the hour.
Wow. When you do that, you write the lyrics and the music?
Yeah, so it's kind of like, as you can see in the studio, that like it's like kind of like my clean slate. I'll go in, I'll set up like a Logic session and I'll just start playing around on some like synthesizers or just like some like chords on a guitar. And if I start to hear something, then I write the melody and then the lyrics come.
Outstanding. And in my life, look, everybody who's a musician, I'm a musician, not a professional. If I've ever even tried to write a song, it's always been a brilliant, outstanding song. Why? Because it's really a song that's written already. So I'm in the middle of it, I said, this sounds a lot like, and it's unbelievable. How do you block out all the music you've heard, you've listened to, you've played, you've performed, and say, here's something that's never been done before? Walk me through that process.
That's like honestly one of the hardest things to go into, because there have been times where I've been in that situation. I've written a melody and I say, why does this sound so familiar? Mm-hmm. And then I listen back to it and I'm like, oh my God, that's another song. So one of the biggest things when I know that I want to go in, I have something that I want to write about, a couple of hours before, I won't listen to any music, just to not be impressionable to the sounds that I was listening to prior. And just so I can get like a really raw, organic take of just what I'm feeling and what I think could work for a song, because I don't want that to happen where I sit and I feel like, oh, this is a great thing. And then it turns out to be someone else's song and you have to kind of go over and start from scratch again. Absolutely.
And let's look at the scale here. Songwriter, singer.
Right.
And you are both, but what really speaks to you? It's almost like saying, mom, dad, who do you like more, me or my sister? So what's the real deal for Amanda?
That's a really tough but great question, because, like you said, I love both. I love songwriting because I get to tell my stories, and I love singing is because it was something I was born to. But I think when it comes down to it, just because I've been doing it longer, I would have to just say singing, whether it's someone else's song or even my own, like just getting to share my voice is something that was given to me. I feel like I'd have to just stick with singing and put songwriting as the second one.
Gotcha. Honest answer, tough question.
Yes.
A real adult answer, and you are an adult now anyway. But even though you're adult, you're so young, and the list of celebrity powerhouses that you've opened for, performed with, it seems endless. I was going to really add those names here, but there were just too many of them. And how do you balance your normal teenage life with the entertainment life that you also lead? Because you were a teen, you're young, you have friends. I know you did miss some things in high school, but then you're opening for people who are the idols of so many of your friends. How do you balance those?
It's kind of like I talk about a switch a lot because in my personal life outside of music, I consider myself kind of very like introverted a little bit. I'm more quiet and reserved, and so I don't really open up and tell people about kind of those experiences. But then when you go on like on the music side of it, it's so vibrant, so bubbly, and it's kind of a switch that I turn on, and I kind of have to separate the two with my music career and my personal life. And the minute that the music comes on and I'm starting to open for these amazing artists, that's where I almost like it's a Hannah Montana moment where I'm kind of like in that mode where I'm like, okay, now I'm Amanda Ayala, the singer-songwriter. I'm not just like the every average town girl, Amanda Ayala. So it's a switch that I kind of have to turn on and off sometimes.
Gotcha. And interesting that you're able to balance that. Personally speaking, when you go on, you're going to audition. There's millions of songs to choose from. I believe you sang Mississippi Queen at your audition. And that's not something I would have expected from a 17-year-old, quite honestly. And what made you say, this is who I am, this is how I want to portray myself, this is what I am going to audition with?
I think one of the biggest reasons going into that is one of that reason right there is because you necessarily wouldn't hear a 17-year-old singing, a mountain song. But, another reason is growing up, I grew up on the roots of like rock and roll. And before becoming a solo artist, I was in cover bands, and those were kind of the songs that I would be like singing at a bar every Friday and Saturday night, whether it was Mountain, ZZ Top, or like Guns N' Roses, Aerosmith, all of those, classic rock genres. So going on the show at the time, I felt like, this could be cool. Miranda Lambert did a version of it too that I watched with Leslie West. And I just said, and this could be a cool approach to take on this show. So I kind of went on a whim. My mom was like, oh my God, are you sure this is the right song? Went on a whim, and I said, if it is, it is. And if it isn't, then we know. And it paid off in the long run.
Right. Well, that's wonderful. And because this is an educational show, lighting the educational flame, I'm curious as to the coaching sessions when they teach you and make you better. And I've heard people who always sound wonderful to begin with, but then you hear the level up 5 weeks later. So do you just go into the room for 20 minutes with them? You don't sit and have coffee. You're in whatever, you go in, you see them, they're like, sing, do this. How does that work?
So there's a lot of behind the scenes work that does go into it. There's like you said, like a 20 minutes to 30 minutes of like on-screen camera time training that you see. You sing the song, they just make a couple tweaks here and there, the coaches. But a lot of the work gets kind of done behind the scenes with our vocal coaches. For the voice, especially, there was a woman named Trelawney. She was our vocal coach aside from the coaches, and she worked with us. I think we had practice with her at least like 3 to 4 times a week for an hour. So she was really responsible for training and fine tuning all the songs that the coaches would then pick for us. So there was a lot that went into it that I'm super grateful for her, because she was just such a knowledgeable woman with scales and like lip trills and so much that I didn't even realize, because I never really had any professional coaching. But learning that was something that I still do now, even before shows.
Excellent. So I love the behind the scenes look, because I know it's magic when they edit it, but there's a lot of work that goes into it. But because, a big thing my philosophy on the show is a lot of times we know the glory, but we don't know the story. So there's singer, there's songwriter, and there's the business.
Yeah.
And there's no way as a youngster you could possibly know the ins and outs of the business of the entertainment industry. So what were the struggles? What were the roadblocks? What were the successes? What were the things that resonated with you and said, wow, I love the notoriety, but. So what do those things look like for you?
I think one of the biggest things too was like, again, learning that business side. It was like a huge learning curve for me because, in terms of after the show, like you think, oh, you can do shows, like you can perform and release singles right after to just keep the momentum, but you're like locked and key under a contract for 2 years.
Mhm.
So there are certain limitations that you do have. And at 17, you don't even realize that you're kind of like giving away. Like I couldn't sign a record deal within 2 years of my time on the contract with the show. You had to have any live performances approved by the team even after you were eliminated. So there was just a lot of things that I was learning. And in terms of social media, if anyone wanted to do a press interview, it had and if I got it directly, I couldn't answer them directly. It would have to go to their PR team and then back to me. So it was just a lot of like third party, relaying messages that was just a lot for me to kind of handle at 17. And I was kind of doing it on my own. I was having my mom help me as much as she could too. So it was just a lot to learn and process. But, I think after a couple months, then I kind of got into the swing of things a little bit.
Right. Well, so you have that and you're learning. And then we have a global pandemic that I can promise you, with the likes of which I haven't seen in my life. Certainly you haven't in your life. How has that affected your career?
It has really, really affected it. Especially live music is something that I love. And that's where I feel like it's one thing to write a song and hear everyone on social media saying how much they like it, how much they've been like vibing to it. But it's another to then actually get to see their response to it and their energy live. And not being able to perform I'm trying to even think, over 15, 16 months has been something that has really taken a toll on me creatively, because there are ways, and I feel like my songs develop the more I play them live. And that's just kind of been stripped away. There's been upsides because it's helped my creative process and writing.
Right.
There's been the downsides where I just can't interact and have that face-to-face interaction with my fans and people who just love listening to music. So that's probably been the hardest part.
Right. And I know you made the best of it. And 17, as you said, was written and all the work was done on it during the pandemic. So you definitely rose above it. I'm almost scared to ask this next question because you've already done so much, but I think you might just be getting started. So what is next for Amanda Ayala?
Honestly, the next on my list and the big dream goal is to be signed to a label within hopefully the next year or two, because I know how long those things take. But just to be on a label, have major publication, and just be able to put my music out to the maximum audience, just to have people and then connect with my music as well. It's great. Obviously, I'm in a great place where I am right now, but I think the biggest thing is to get signed and have more people be able to connect and relate to my songs.
Outstanding. And keep moving forward, and certainly continued success. Amanda, I can't thank you enough for being on today's show and sharing your passion for music, a little backroom information back there, so we can learn a little bit more about what really goes on some of these shows, and just giving us a glimpse into the world of entertainment in general. So thank you for that. And to the viewers, this is Mark Hoberman. Thank you for watching Lighting the Educational Flame. Have a great day. Amanda, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching Lighting the Educational Flame. To contact Mark Hoberman, email him at info@gradesuccess.com or visit him on social media through Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Thank you for watching Lighting the Educational Flame.